Hi, this is Ushio and welcome to my top 10 video of 1988. It's been a while since I did the 1987 video, but it took me quite a while to read through some of this stuff because some of these are about 1,000 pages long and they take me quite a while to get through, basically. You probably noticed in like the last video, it was a bit of like a chronological order as I kind of had to like lay the groundwork for how the Western manga industry kind of started. However, we don't need to do that anymore. So I've got 10 manga, and I'm just going to put them with the ones I like less at the start and the ones I like the most toward the end. It's not really a hard and fast rule, and obviously it's an opinion. And I'm going to cheat just because I say it's 1988. There's some stuff I'm kind of going to ignore and push into 1989 because I haven't got many options to pick from. So I'm going to cheat a little bit so I can fill out the list, but it doesn't matter. It's my list. I'll do what I want. So first up, the manga from 1988 that I like the least is Justy. And there's 10 issues, no, 9 issues, by mistake, 9 issues. It never got published into a book, so the only way to get this is to buy the individual comics. Honestly, unless you're really, really into it, I personally wouldn't bother. So it's just like a science fiction fantasy. He's like a space cop, and he just needs to like arrest some criminals and blow some bad guys up with his psychic powers, and that's essentially what it is. So it's kind of like a fairly standard average manga. It's got 1 or 2 issues that I don't super like because there's like one girl, she's like 5 years old or something, and because of psychic powers or whatever reason, she gets transported into the body of an adult, and that's a weird combination of like hot girl with a childlike mind, and I don't like that. That's kind of creepy for me. And also there's like the delivery, because it's still the early days of manga publishers trying to work out how to like sell their stuff to Western audiences. As before, mistakes are going to get made, and this one, in the letters page, you can already see it that people aren't into it. So I think this was something like 7 volumes or something in Japan. Only 9 issues got picked, and they're from throughout the entire series. So it's really chop and change. The art style shifts. So originally it's kind of like a squished kind of style. Everything looks a little bit soft, and some issues there's quite a hard edge to it, and he's a little bit taller, and it kind of jumps around between styles. Also, there's some name changes that people didn't like, and character dynamics that people didn't like also. So like the major love interests, she actually calls him brother all the time because of the whole Oni-chan, One-chan, this kind of relationship in the Japanese, but it doesn't translate that well to English. So it kind of goes into a bit of a borderline incest relationship because it isn't really fully explained. And while there's a precedent in America at the time, you got like your Battle of the Planets and your Robotechs, and Samurai Pizza Cats even later on, where you just change whatever you like to suit the audience. Because you're appealing to like a hardcore crowd, the hardcore crowd want it as accurate as they can get it in these early stages. So if you start changing like the names and stuff like this, and kind of altering things that the audience, the core audience, isn't going to like, it's kind of dead on arrival. So it's just a combination of bad things. It's a fairly typical manga. I wouldn't say it's super great, and it's delivered in a way that doesn't really win any new fans over. So it's a bit of a shame, and honestly, I would leave this one. I wouldn't really recommend it. Next up, this is a cheat. So honestly, it didn't actually appear properly until I don't think 1990, but the company where it came from was founded in 1988. So this is my reason, and it's going to take up a space now. I've got Manga Gin. And this is not even a manga really, so I'm completely cheating here, but that's fine. Anyway, it's a language guide. If you're learning Japanese but you really want to get into like the nitty-gritty of context and how best to use certain phrases, this is the kind of book you need. And it uses like manga panels as examples on how do you talk to someone who's like a child or an older person or your boss, or like how do women speak to men speak to women, this kind of context. So for example, the word yes, you know, hi, this kind of thing, it has 2 whole chapters on that one very simple word, because it also means okay, it also means I agree, and it just really breaks down how you can use certain phrases like that. It's a really useful guide. It's not a manga, but it does have 1 or 2 manga panels per page from, you got like What's Michael, you got Yawara, which has never been translated, you got Shin-chan. It just takes all kinds of different manga and just shows, here's a good context for this phrase that we're teaching you, and here you go. So yeah, it isn't from this year, it isn't from 1988, but I'm going to put it on this list anyway, because around this period of time, I want to have like new titles. I don't want to just say, oh, Zenon was still coming out. I want to have some new stuff if I can. So I'm just kind of padding out and show some new stuff, and this is probably the only opportunity I can have to talk about this. But yeah, Mangajin, it's only really relevant if you're actively learning Japanese and you want to get into it. It's not for beginners. It's a little bit beyond the first couple of steps. Okay, so here's a really weird one. This is Japan Inc. by Shotaro Ishinomori, who is one of the manga legends from back in the day. So people like to complain about Osamu Tezuka getting too much of the limelight. Ishinomori beat him to the punch when it comes to being published in the West. And this manga is a business manga. And if business isn't your thing, don't even consider it. This is a very serious business manga. If you're very interested in like the Japanese economical market and how it deals with like America and the States and the Arab markets, it's really in that area. And also because of the time period in which it was published, it was originally come out in '86 and was published in English in 1988. It was right at the start of the Japanese economic bubble. So if this is your area of interest and you're like really serious into like your business terms, then you're going to get something from this. Personally, business like on this level, the top end CEO level stuff that affects like prime ministers and governments and stuff, it's a little bit too much for me. It's not really my area of interest. I don't particularly care. The manga itself is kind of unremarkable. The characters aren't particularly likable, and it's just like a regular story. You got like one guy, and he's like, oh, he's the good old-fashioned guy who likes to look after his neighbours and like the old-fashioned style of business. And then you got his friend who's like the high flyer, and he'll do business by like, you know, blackmailing people and stuff like this. And so while I chose to kind of skip on a lot of the business stuff because I found it kind of broke up the flow of what the manga's, you know, the regular story of it. So behind me I've got like Hikaru no Go, and Hikaru no Go is about a board game which very few people I would have thought are kind of interested in. But the manga's still good because the characters are interesting and you want to see what's going to happen. This is only interesting because you're interested in business, not because the characters are interesting. So it's such a curious thing. So this was published by University of California Press, and they really put in a lot of effort to put this manga out. They've kind of put it in like traditional Western format, but the effort they went in to actually shuffle the panels around just so it was easier for Western audiences to read. A lot of effort went into it, and also like the dialogue, for example. You know, you're used to having it like float in the middle of the bubble. It's all like aligned on the left side like it's a regular paragraph. So all the speech bubbles look a little bit off as well. And there's a nice little introductory essay at the front explaining what manga is. So the essay's actually quite good. But this is a serious attempt to actually engage adults with manga. Like it leaves in blackmailing, like one guy, he goes to an S&M club, this kind of thing. And like has some swearing in there as well. So it is an earnest, serious attempt. But personally, it doesn't do anything for me. It's not in my area of interest. But if you're super into your business and you really want to study Japanese attitudes toward their economical kind of like process just before their bust, it's an interesting one if you want to get into that, and it's not that expensive to pick up even after all this time. Here we go. This one's sort of legit and this one's sort of a cheat at the same time. I have got Yoshihilu Tatsumi's Goodbye, which is very good, but at the same time it's sort of illegal. I'm not sure. So this book is a series of short stories about really depressed people in really shitty situations and not knowing how to handle it, and they're kind of like self-destructing in the worst possible ways. It's not a super appealing manga. A lot of people won't be into it, but honestly it's really well done. The artwork's got like a really raw element to it, and it's just a bit of work to get through in a good way. It's a struggle. Life is a struggle, and this manga kind of puts that through. You'll be more familiar with these because the John and Quarterly did those little books more recently, and those are legit. So these books, it's not that thick, about 100 pages, but this book is sort of illegal because apparently it's not authorized. I'm not sure what happened with this book, so this is why it's a little bit lower down this top 10. When you look inside, it says that the manga was translated from the Spanish edition, and because this manga was originally in Japanese, I don't know what happened. So maybe they couldn't get rights from Japan and they took it from the Spanish version. I don't know what happened with it, but apparently it's unauthorized, so in a lot of respects it's kind of supposed to be struck from history. But I've got a copy. Honestly, just get the Drawn Quarterly volumes. Most of these stories are covered in those books anyway. They are smaller though. This is a nice big book, and you can really get into the artwork. It's quite a visceral, confrontational kind of like approach to seeing the work blown up like this. But it's nice if you go and get the Drawn Quarterly ones. You'll be rewarded, even though it might make you sad. Next up is Pineapple Army, and this front cover, and all the single issues. That's another thing to like consider. A lot of these graphic novels I'm showing you were originally published like 1 month at a time or once every 2 weeks in comic book format. So you'd have to go to the comic shop. You couldn't just go to a regular bookshop. You'd really have to go into like a proper comic shop and pick these up. And eventually they will be printed. But Pineapple Army, these covers have literally nothing to do with the contents. And I'm not sure why they thought this was a good idea, or how you're going to get someone's attention. Say, oh, look at this. This looks really cool and arty. Open the page. Oh, it's just some regular like Japanese manga style. So for this one, the art is done by Naoki Urasawa. But this is incomplete. They only published 1 volume, even though there's a lot more available. And honestly, it's okay. It's okay. So we're kind of reaching the point on the list where we've gone from stuff I don't really recommend, and stuffs to like, we're getting to the more perhaps desirable stuff. It's about a guy, he's an ex-Vietnam vet, and he teaches people how to defend themselves in military ways. It's basically 1 story per chapter. One person has a situation, they're being like, I don't know, blackmailed, or they're being threatened by someone. We'll hire this guy, he'll teach them how to defend themselves with like guns or grenades or whatever it would be. And then they have a fight, and hopefully they have a happy ending. And it just kind of goes on repeat. And because of that, it's slightly repetitive in nature. And also the main character, because he's a little bit on the stoic side, he's a bit boring. And I don't find him that interesting. And I'm not super interested when he's like hanging out with his girlfriend or something like that. Because, yeah, he's just a bit dull to me. But the artwork's nice. And some of the depictions of like people from around the world are a little bit dated by today's standards, so that's one thing to watch out for. But yeah, it's Urasawa. If you want to complete your set of his manga, if you've got 20th Century Boys, if you've got Pluto, this kind of stuff, then yeah, you want to pick this one up just to fill the gaps. It's a curiosity. It's okay, the artwork's quite nice, and if you just want to see a bit of military tactics or fighting and some kind of character-based stories, then yeah, it's fine. Here we go, now we're getting to the big guns. In this case, literally, this is Appleseed. This is Masamune Shiro, who in the early days of like the manga in the West, he did a lot of stuff, and he really had like a proper fan following. And so like the first few years, from like 88 through to like the early 90s, we're going to see a lot of his work, and he's going to be showing up on a lot more of these top 10s. But Appleseed is kind of like, his magnum opus to me. It's kind of like his big one. There is Ghost in the Shell, but Appleseed, I think, is probably more his core interest. And it's essentially about dystopias. So you've got this world that presents itself as being perfect, but actually it's kind of, from its actual roots, doesn't work. So you got Duna and Briarios, they live in the Badlands outside of town, and they get dragged into this utopia. But quickly they realise it's not working, and they need to still kind of fight for themselves. Even if it's just not on the surface where they're having to blow stuff up, they still got to watch their backs, because people get killed, and if you step out of line in what this society wants you to do, you're going to have real trouble. The artwork's really nice, the artwork's super detailed, and also a lot of the technical information is super detailed. So detailed that it kind of breaks up the flow of how the reading works. So it's kind of what you're into. If you're into like the super detailed, what kind of gun is that? What kind of mecha is this? How does this social construct work? How does that political angle affect this situation? Then, yeah, you'll probably get something out of it. For me, I like the artwork, and I like how the action works and how the characters function. But I find the real philosophical aspects, it kind of muddies it a bit. And it's not super for me. Personally, I'd recommend checking out the anime first, and if that takes your fancy, then you can get a little bit more in depth with what the manga wants to do. It is a classic, and I'm not going to trash it because I know people do like it. And yeah, that's Appleseed. It's worth picking up. So in the 1987 video, we looked at 2 main companies that were doing manga publishing. You had like Viz Media, who were then Viz Communications, and you also had First Publishing, who were doing Low Morph and Cub. There were other titles and there were other publishers, but they were the main 2. But first publishing, after Lone Wolf and Cub, they only followed it up with one other title, and it is Mazinger by Go Nagaya. And it is one volume, it's skinny, it's in full colour, which even now is quite unusual, and it's kind of like a square book, it's kind of like a funny shape. And Go Nagaya, he must have been really keen to get his work into the American market back in the 80s, because he had some stuff in Epic magazine in 83, he self-published, I think it was, a Devilman book in 86, I think it was, and now in 88 we got a full colour work of Mazinger. And it's short, so you're not going to get too much of a story, but basically the world has come to such a point and everybody's been killed apart from people who still want to fight, and it's divided into the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and these are the two sides that still want to fight, and they got like giant robots and they just want to fight. However, that's not so important, because our hero, he gets sucked into a parallel universe, of course you do, and he finds a kind of like a naked woman, of course, and she's fighting a bunch of lizard men, of course, you know, and he shows up in his robot things, fights the lizards, and he starts to hit it off with this woman, even though she's about 100 foot tall and he's really, really short. You know, it's just how life is sometimes. So they kind of swear their love to each other, and then he suddenly ends up back in his own universe, realizing that in the face of love, war is kind of like pointless, and you know, it's bad to prolong war. It's kind of what the story's about. Maybe I've put my own angle on that. Honestly, it's a super short story, but the main reason you would get this is the sheer spectacle of it. Some of the artwork in here is really nice, and having full colour Go Nagaya stuff on full display at maximum power, you know, it's just a nice thing to have. I don't think it's super cheap to get these days, but if you're a fan and you really like his stuff, it is worth picking up just to check out the pages. The story, you're not super here for the story, but it actually made me laugh once or twice. It's fine. I guess if you wanted to be like super picky, you could argue that this isn't even manga because it was made specifically for an American market. But it's on this list. I don't care. It's my list, and I'll do what I want in this case. But Go Nagaya, been a bit of a fan for a while, and if you really want to get into his stuff and you want something nice and special, this is a nice book. Okay, we're heading into like top 3 territory now. So we have got Grey, and personally, you could probably compare this to Appleseed, and depending on what your preferences are, I land on the side of Grey. It's just as cynical, it's got just as much action, if not a little bit more, and it kind of removes a lot of the philosophy stuff that I think bogged down Appleseed. It's still there, definitely, for sure it's still there, but it doesn't bring it to the forefront. It kind of leaves it to your own devices, and you can think about what it's going on with it. So Grey is about a system where if you want to progress within society, you have to be a mercenary and go out into the world and kill other mercenaries. It's a tough world, life is cheap, people die, and Grey is a survivor. He really wants to get to the top so he can earn some money, and he's got some deep-seated issues that he wants to resolve by succeeding within the system, except the system itself, it turns out, it's sort of a liar. That's a bit of a spoiler there, actually. It's only 2 volumes long, so it's not super long, and you can kind of get into it. The ending of volume 1 is a bit of a shocker twist, and yeah, I'm definitely not going to spoil that for you. The artwork has kind of like a static, soulless method in way it presents itself. So you have an explosion, but it won't be like all the speed lines dragging it out. It will be frozen in time, and yeah, people just die, and it's rough. He has a bit of a sassy mouth on him, but I think that's kind of down to how the adaptation of the translation went. But I thought it was really entertaining. It will not make you happy, but it will pique your interest. That's all I can say about it. It's been published a couple of times. There's a perfect edition, I think it is, and I think this is the older edition, and it was originally published in single issue comics. So if you're searching on eBay and it says, oh, it's volume 1 and it's only 30 pages, don't. You want the 300-page versions. Okay, we've only got 2 manga left now, so I just had to flip a coin. Honestly, they're both equally as good, but I think that one has more general overall appeal, and the other one, you kind of have to learn to like it a little bit more. So the one you have to learn to like a little bit more, we've got Nazika of the Valley of the Wind by Hayao Miyazaki, and it goes to show that toward the bottom of this top 10 list, a lot of that stuff's out of print, and more toward the top of the list is the stuff that stayed in print. It's kind of like a proof that these titles are still good, and they do endure, and they're still worth picking up now. You can get the deluxe box set of this, which is really, really nice. But this is easier to hold because it's thin. There's 7 volumes like this. It's been published, it's been flipped, it's been put in regular order, it's been put in hardback. It's been published so many times, and I don't think it matters what version you get, they're all good. So I'm going to talk as though you've seen the anime, you know what the anime is about, you know Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki. But the manga is darker than the film. The film is kind of cute, it kind of like shows you a couple of the characters, some stuff happens, gets a little bit dark but not too bad. This goes way further if you want to see atrocities and like piles of bodies just piling up on fire and stuff like this. Nazika really goes in this direction. So it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic world where Earth has been destroyed and it's starting to regrow literally in way of like cursed forests with all these spores inside that will kill you if you go inside. You're surviving on the outside of these forests, just clinging on to life. But humans being what they are, of course they want to fight. So that is what they're doing in between all the cursed shit. They just want to keep fighting, conquer each other, and hopefully not die in a world that's actively trying to cleanse them, sort of thing. The cast's about 2 or 3 times as the film, so there's a lot more going on. You don't even see the main bad guy in like the original movie. If you're a fan of like Princess Mononoke in the later stages where it gets super dark and grim, this is Nazika for like 5 volumes worth of it, if not more. You'll have characters that kind of show up and disappear for long periods of time. Even Nazika disappears for chapters at a time. And it kind of focuses on other characters. It's really thought out, it's really fleshed out. And it's very handcrafted feel to it. Every single panel I would put on my wall, to be honest. Like, the world is completely unique, it's been built from scratch. It's got its own entire culture that it doesn't need to be explained because you just see it's living in the background. It's a phenomenal work, to be honest. And personally, it's probably one of my favourites that I've read. I read it recently and it really affected me once I got through it. But honestly, it's good. Get the box set on Amazon, and if you want to invest in it and give it a bit of time, I think you'll be rewarded. And here we go. This is my number 1 for 1988. Akira. You probably saw this coming, so sorry. No surprises here, to be honest with you. Akira, it's good. It's just a lot of fun. And again, I'm going to talk about it with the assumption that you're familiar with the movie or have at least heard of it or something like this. But Akira is about... It's set in Neo Tokyo in 2020, isn't it? At the time of the Olympics. it kind of coincidentally lined up that way. But you got all these like biker kids, the street punks that do their drugs, beat each other up, ride around town, make a mess of the place. But they kind of come into contact with these like psychics. And these psychics are part of a government conspiracy. Because, you know, there's always a government conspiracy. And it doesn't take long before everything hits the fan, buildings start to explode. Okay, you can see it behind me. There are 6 volumes up here. Originally it was published by Epic, who's a part of Marvel Comics, and they published it in full colour. It wasn't Katsuhiro Otomo, he didn't colour it himself, but he did approve the guy who did it. So it was done with his blessing, and it has like a really nice acidic quality to the colours and that, and it kind of works, and it kind of holds up today as well, to be honest. It's a bit of a surprise to me that you can't get those full colour works, because I'm sure there'd be a market for it, if not for the nostalgia crowd. But historically, it's a thing that happened, and I think it looks fine. So it was originally published in, I think, was it 37 chapters, something like this, or compiled into 6 chunky books like this. It was put into smaller books, but they never finished that, so ignore those ones. And now you can get the black and white copies. And honestly, it's really good. The first 3 volumes is a big action chase sequence, essentially. And it's a lot of fun. So when people talk about the old classics, you might want to roll your eyes and be like, oh, it's just one of these old boring kind of manga. Honestly, no, it's a big action thing, and it doesn't actually take itself super seriously. It's fun, you know? And if the manga's fun, then it's easier to read. And it reaches a point in the story at the end of volume 3, and then there's kind of like a jump, and everything is really torn down, and they're trying to like forge a new way of living in the middle of this world where everybody knows about these psychics, and cults have risen, and it gets a little bit weird toward the end, but as a journey, it's really fun. And the backgrounds are phenomenal. If you're the kind of person who's bothered by manga not having enough backgrounds, just check out Akira. These backgrounds are ridiculously detailed. If you want to see like skyscrapers falling from all different directions with all the rubble and all the bits and bobs and the graffiti all over it, Akira got you covered. There is one big huge box set that Kodansha put out, and honestly I can't afford that. I got the Dark Horse copies, one by one quite slowly. So if you start saving your pennies, they're going to turn up on eBay, or you can get them one by one from Kodansha. I think you can get them separately as well. But it's good. They're in nice, big, oversized volumes. The bigger size is nice for this kind of detail. Normally I prefer smaller books, but big is good. And it's just Akira. Everybody's heard of it. Don't dismiss it because it's old. Honestly, it's fun. It's a good one. And that's it. That's my top 10 for 1988. I did cheat once or twice, and a couple of titles that did get published in 88, I'm actually going to push forward into 1989, because in terms of new titles launching in 89, there aren't that many. If I can cover these gaps, I'll do my best. If you're interested in hearing me talk a little bit more about Nazika and Appleseed in a bit more detail, I'm going to be doing more detailed reviews of this in the near future. I hope you enjoyed this list, and hopefully the video for 1989 won't be too long into the future, but I'm not going to rush it. I'm just going to take my time and then give some general overviews once I've read what I can read. And that's it really. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for your time. And this is Usho signing off, and hopefully I will see you next time.